This is Sri Lanka, and the waters surrounding us is the Sea of Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka's vital geopolitical value is what prompted the Portuguese, Dutch and British to colonize us. The strategy of choice used by all three was agreements. It was these agreements signed between local rulers and colonial powers that led us to losing our independence. Are we on the cusp of seeing history being repeated itself?
With the long shadow of history always in the background, it is not unusual that Sri Lankans view the sudden extra attention paid towards our affairs by nations such as the United States, China, India, and others with suspicion. Most recently, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo took a whirlwind tour of Sri Lanka and claimed that the US will extend its support to create a free indo-pacific region. The Secretary of State stirred controversy when he claimed that China was a predator while addressing the media during his tour of Sri Lanka.
We see from bad deals, violations of sovereignty and lawlessness on land and sea that the Chinese Communist Party is a predator.
The American policy concerning Sri Lanka and its ocean was clearly not one which was formulated impulsively. America has drawn up well-thought-out plans to counter the growing dominance of China, spearheaded through its Belt and Road Initiative. Sri Lanka's geopolitical location acts as a linchpin towards the success of the United States Master Plan. On the 12th of February 2019, in testimony before the Senate Armed Services Committee on U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Posture, Admiral Philip S. Davidson, the U.S. Navy commander for the United States Indo-Pacific Command, noted Sri Lanka remains a significant strategic opportunity in the Indian Ocean. He added that while military engagement between Sri Lanka and the United States continues to progress, the United States, quote-unquote, should enhance its military presence in Sri Lanka. Several examples of this are the arrival of the USS John C. Stennis aircraft carrier to Trincomalee and conducting cargo transfers, providing training to Sri Lankan forces, enhancing the Coast Guard capabilities, and providing an American Coast Guard vessel to Sri Lanka as initiatives which have enhanced America's presence in Sri Lanka. In line with the agreements reached under the AXA agreement, which was initially signed in 2007 and expanded in 2017, the US conducted several military supply operations through Sri Lanka in the recent past. In the very least, these agreements do not provide an opportunity for our authorities to inspect goods exchanged by US military transport aircraft at the Katunayake airport. Meanwhile, the United States continues to criticize China's activities in Sri Lanka, emphasizing that Sri Lanka is trapped in a Chinese debt trap. The Hambantota port is often used as an apt example. China currently holds a majority stake in many Sri Lankan projects, including the Hambantota port, the port city, and the South Container Terminal of the Colombo port. Proposals were put forth in the recent past to upgrade the East Container Terminal of the Colombo port, the port of Trincomalee, and the Hambantota airport, with parties that are in agreement with the United States Indo-Pacific policy, including India and Japan. Meanwhile, the Chinese embassy in Colombo pointed out in a tweet that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa himself has noted that Sri Lanka has not fallen into a Chinese debt trap. The embassy states that the amount of Chinese loans obtained by Sri Lanka in 2018 amounted to only 12% of the country's total foreign debt, and it has further reduced to 10% in 2019. The embassy emphasized that $1.12 billion obtained through the lease of the Hambantota port was also utilized by Sri Lanka to repay loans obtained from the West. Meanwhile, addressing the virtual conference of the annual policy dialogue of the World Leadership Alliance, Club de Madrid, former President Chandrika Bandaranayake Kumaratunga expressed her views regarding Chinese loans.
We have had very good relations with China, Sri Lanka, I myself during my government, but we do not want to get subjugated economically or financially We are getting caught up in a huge debt trap to one nation, one economically powerful nation, because of our economic and financial weakness. Some of our governments agree to have some of these nations, especially one, undertake massive development projects in our countries with loans granted at 6 to 9%, whereas the World Bank, as we know, the maximum that a respectable country would accept is about 1% from the World Bank, for example, 1% above LIBOR. So this has caught, for example, Sri Lanka is caught in a massive debt trap with loans negotiated by a previous government. We do not like that, and we see it as a form of neocolonialism.
Ki Zhenhong has been named as the new ambassador designate of China to Sri Lanka. He is an expert in China's Belt and Road Initiative. Sri Lanka is a civilization that for centuries coexisted and traded with the known world. Our ancient rulers always placed the interest of our nation before others. The non-aligned foreign policy is not something that is new to Sri Lanka. It is our ancient philosophy. Today, we have a situation where China wants to embroil Sri Lanka in its Belt Road, and the US wants us to champion its Indo-Pacific region. Both nations and their allies are pulling us in different directions with the sole objection of protecting their own interests. But who will protect our interests? Ultimately, as it was in history, it may come down to the people to stand against this modern day colonialism. We are not the Belt Road, neither are we the Indo-Pacific. We have no use for lotus towers, empty ports, AXAs, sofas, and MCCs. Leaders both here resolve to retain our independence is not.